Hello, everybody. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose. That would be moi. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. As always, I appreciate you. We have something to get into, some talking points. We got to talk about the Olympics a little bit. There's like three things to talk about when it comes to the Olympics, which is it really safe to go to the Olympics? I'm going to go with no. But we'll talk about that too. Should we be doing the Olympics if it's not safe to go to the Olympics? Again, I'm going to go with no. And then these anti-doping agencies that are supposed to prevent steroid use in the Olympics, not as effective as we'd hope, right? Not as effective. We also have a positive story involving sports and sexual assault and the University of Florida. Never before has anyone said those three things together and come away with a positive. I don't think. I can't recall the time. So here it is. We have one instance of this going correctly and somebody understanding sexual assault and all of the things that entails. We also have to talk about the Atlanta Braves around the trade deadline. So many more things to talk about. But before we do that, let me talk about where you can find us, where we can find you, and then we can get into some of these news stories that occurred. Just some quick hits. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are the places that I'd like to recommend that you go. If you'd like to reach us, we can always reach you, especially if you're listening right now. We're reaching you right now. But if you want to reach us, go to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Have your say. Call us at the Hot News Talk Radio hotline, 423-800-8949. You can do that as well. Also, you can stream us live on hotnewstalkradio.com, as well as get to all of our social media links. Check out our archived episodes on YouTube. You can stream us live on Facebook as well. Just click on the little radio plug-in. It's either in the bottom left corner of the page, or you can click on the little button next to photos, and you can get Hot News Talk Radio there as well. You can also check us out on the TuneIn Radio app. Again, that's the TuneIn Radio app, free in your favorite app store. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio, give us a favorite, and press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. I want to talk about Dennis Green a little bit. Dennis Green is the former Arizona Cardinals coach, former Minnesota Vikings offensive coordinator. And Dennis Green had a long stint in the league. Definitely a talented coach. Probably more famous for his rant after the Cardinals lost to the Bears, I believe, on Monday Night Football. The they are not who we thought they were rant. That rant, famous in sports history. Dennis Green passed away of heart failure, I believe, earlier today. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and all the people who remember him as a great coach. Here's something that's happening, right? Major League Baseball, we've got the trade deadline. It's coming up. And the Braves are obviously a team that you would want to target during the trade deadline for a number of reasons. One being that they have a bunch of prospects. The Braves have a bunch of prospects, and Julio Teheran, who is a fantastic pitcher and the one good piece on that team. And if you're the Braves looking to upgrade your team, basically start adding offense to this team, because you could pitch. I mean, you've got pitching. You've either got good arms and you've got young arms and you've got a lot of them. Okay, the issue here is not whether or not Atlanta is going to be a team that's good at pitching down the road. You've got all the assets, but can you turn some of those assets into offense for this rebuild to start heading in a direction where we think things are possibly very effective? There are a few trades, according to Talking Chop, the SB Nation blog that covers the Atlanta Braves. There are some trades that are pretty nice, pretty enticing. The key in these trades, the thing that holds all of these trades together, is Julio Teheran. He is the one piece that you're probably thinking, if a team is going to make a trade with the Braves, it's going to be for that guy because he's such a tremendous pitcher, such a tremendous talent that the biggest piece that's currently on the roster that anybody's going to want is him. And he is a guy that you can probably try and get multiple pieces for, at different positions all over the field. You can probably try and get multiple pieces for Julio Teheran. I would imagine that would be very effective. There one trade that I really think looks enticing that was suggested in the article is the trade involving Julio Teheran and Arodys Vizcano, and you would acquire from the Red Sox Blake Swihart, Yohan Moncada, Andrew Benintendi, Rafael Devers, and probably a lot more in the way of prospects. And what that does is it gets you to get about 3 or 4 guys on your team that are still pretty young, that you've got an opportunity to play around with here and see if you can't load up the team. Now, it is a little bit of a pipe dream trade, admittedly. It's not it's not in the realm of likelihood, especially since the Red Sox acquired Drew Pomeranz from the Padres. They got a little bit of pitching. They've kind of rounded out some, so they're not in need. They're not as much in need as they were previously. But I just think that would be a really, really cool trade if you're the Braves and you could somehow pull that off. Here's the thing with tanking. If you've got good pieces and you're not willing to trade any of those pieces and you're not willing to let any of those pieces go anywhere, then it's very, very hard to overcome the tanking situation. Because when it comes to the tanking situation, you kind of make your entire team look toxic, and possibly guys who would perform better under certain other circumstances don't look like they're performing very well on your team. Okay, so you just have to trust that the other team that you're getting involved in a trade with looks at you and goes, yeah, we could use that guy. It's a tough spot to be in. And the Braves are in it right now. And this is how these long, completely blow everything to piece rebuilds, this is how they get stuck. This is where they stall typically, is you either end up trading for pieces that are not as good as you would like, as good as you would need. You kind of end up shortchanging yourself in an attempt to catch up, and that makes you good but not a contender. Or you end up rebuilding so long that the fan base becomes impatient with you, and then you end up never getting the opportunity to finish the rebuild. And with baseball, things can turn very quickly if you get the right pieces and you put them in the right places. So you don't end up in a situation where you're like the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA nearly as easily. And also there's not as much pressure on you to be a contender right away. But believe me, the pressure is there, and the Braves have been on this downswing for so long that you'd have to think that there's got to be a sense of urgency there with getting this team back to where it was in terms of competing for the division year in and year out. There was a time. The Braves were at the top of the division, basically constantly pummeling the Nationals, and now the shoe is definitely on the other foot. The Nationals have the upper hand, and they don't just beat the Braves, they beat everybody in this division. They beat everybody. I mean, the Phillies are also bad. They beat them. They beat the Mets, who are pretty darn good. And you want to be up there if you're Atlanta. There's no good reason why you should be this synonymous with losing when you were a contending team just a couple of years ago. So you always have to ask these questions with rebuilds. How long are these things going to take? And I'm looking for the Braves at the trade deadline, I think, to push and try and make some kind of movement. Otherwise, what is the point of acquiring all of these assets? It's like a pyramid scheme. This is what I call the 76ers. Like, I would call the Braves that too if this continues much longer. It's a pyramid scheme. You're always acquiring prospects and you're always acquiring assets, but you're never acquiring anybody that's going to help you win right away. You're always kicking the can down the road for the future, for the future, for the future. That's how a pyramid scheme works. That is how pyramid schemes are set up. You invite somebody else who invites somebody else, and you make money by inviting them, but they don't make any money unless they invite somebody else. So you're always passing the buck on down the road, down the road, down the road. That's a pyramid scheme. You don't want to do the pyramid scheme for your fan base, to your fan base, right? Like that's the place where morally, as a team, you cannot do that to your fan base. That is horrifying. To go all pyramid scheme on them, Ponzi scheme, that's a tough spot. I as a fan, as a Braves fan, would hate to see that. That is the opposite of what I want to see this team doing. And so I'm looking for some strong moves during the trade deadline. Looking for them. Gotta have them. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. And I've got a story out of the SEC, out of Florida, about a story involving sexual assault and a football player that's not where you think that it is going. It's not a story that's bad for once. In fact, it's a very positive story. It's a very positive story. This is how things went down. Okay, because there's a number of stories of sexual assault and physical assault in the news these days, and they're never positive. It's the Tennessee settling the rape culture settlement. It's Baylor and being accused of allowing rapes to occur on campus and silencing the victims and all of those things. It's Penn State and more stuff involving Jerry Sandusky and Joe Pa. Every time you hear sexual assault in the news and athletes, it's never good. It's always bad. And I think this is a story that probably needs to garner a little bit more attention, and I hope it does run a little bit. Not because I think that positive stories should outweigh negative stories, but negative stories already carry way too much weight. This is how things went down at the University of Florida. According to First Coast News, Florida linebacker Christian Garcia helped to stop a sexual assault. A sexual assault in action behind a bar early Thursday morning. According to the report, Garcia, who worked security behind the 101 Cantina in Gainesville, saw a man raping a barely conscious woman behind the establishment. He said, quote, "The girl was basically unconscious, so I knew there was no way she could be giving consent," end quote. So here's a man, young man, University of Florida, who understands how rape works. Because I think too many of us don't understand how rape works. That is a huge problem. Constant communication during sex, that is a good way to prevent rape from happening. Because if your partner can't communicate back, you probably shouldn't be trying to make that happen. Just a good idea. You probably shouldn't be trying to make that happen. If somebody cannot tell you yes, they cannot consent to anything. And if you proceed with fun time, it'll be fun time for just you and rape for them. And so that's rape. You can't do that. It's really not. There's really no two ways about it. You cannot do that. Just clear. There's a YouTube video about it. I will post it on the Facebook page. There's a YouTube video about giving consent and what consent looks like. Replace the idea of having sex. This is how the YouTube video goes. They replace the idea of having sex with drinking tea. If you offer somebody tea and they tell you no, you cannot force them to drink tea. You can't walk up and start trying to pour the tea into their mouth because they don't want any. They said no. If somebody is not capable of saying yes, you still can't give them the tea. You can't force them to drink it. If they said yes, they'd like some tea, and then you made the tea, and then they changed their mind and said no, I changed my mind. Actually, I don't want any tea. Then you can't force them to drink the tea. And more importantly, if they are asleep, you cannot force that person to drink tea because sleeping people can't want tea. They are unconscious. That's the definition of rape. If you do what you do without the other person's consent, you are wrong. they can change their mind whenever they want. And if they are unconscious, they cannot consent, and therefore that is rape. How it is that it is possible that we do not understand this, we don't understand this. So let's just talk about it, because there's a number of ways to talk about sex, and I think when it comes to talking about it, I think you get the talk from your parents, the birds and the bees, and whatever else, however it is that they name that conversation. But nobody gets in depth into it because it is something of an embarrassing conversation. And while we as Americans feel like we've got all the bravado and all of the swagger, and we like sex and sex appeal, and sex sells in our country, and look at all of our commercials, and look at all of our movies, and listen to all our music. We've got a ton of sex in our media, and yet when you have to sit down and talk about the thing properly, we don't want to do it. We don't even want to try to do it. It is the worst scenario that we have. We just aren't capable of trying to sit down and talk about sex intelligently. And then when we do have conversations about sex, it's who can we shame for having done this incorrectly? And we don't lift up enough guys like Christian Garcia, who have identified what is wrong, identified what is rape, and knows the difference, is capable of discerning between the difference, and then stopping something horribly wrong from happening. So I'm going to give him a ton of credit for that, because that's, to me, that's the most important thing that he's going to do this year, regardless of what he does at Florida, regardless of what Florida does. The most important thing he's going to do all year is that. And hopefully this is an opportunity to spread that education to other people. You can't go around not knowing what rape is. And yes, it does get kind of tricky. It really does. It gets a little bit tricky at times. And that's the reason why when you talk about sex, you got to talk about communication. Constantly asking what is and isn't okay is the only way to do that, in a way that might make some people uncomfortable. I heard a news story about it the other day, where it was a bunch of college guys trying to basically understand the concept of consent, and they were having the hardest time wrapping their minds around it. That basically they were like, it's going to ruin the mood. It's going to ruin the mood. I mean, first off, if asking somebody if they're okay with what you're doing sexually is going to ruin the mood, maybe you didn't have as much game as you at first thought. Maybe that's what that is. You couldn't be a little bit creative, figure out how to ask without ruining the mood. Think about it. I don't know what the solution to that is, but there's no way to ask that question. It's just you end up feeling a little self-conscious about the subject, and we can't feel self-conscious about sex. It's too important. Everybody wants to do it, and everybody is capable of doing it incorrectly. Especially if you're going to think to yourself, oh, that person is unconscious, I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway, if that's how you're going to be doing this incorrectly. If your incorrection is going to cause you to hurt only yourself, like the people playing Pokemon Go and driving into police cars because they can't pay attention to the road, yeah, that's on you. If you're being incorrect causes you to drive off a cliff, I don't have any sympathy for you. But if your being incorrect is going to be hurting other people, then I've got to know what it is that you're up to. And we're coming at this wrong. You see it with the Stanford swimmer case, that there's still people who don't understand. Like, if you're someone who understands, if it ever comes up in a conversation, bring it up, because there's still people who don't understand. You've got the Stanford swimmer. His dad wrote a bunch of deplorable stuff, including calling his rape of another student a few minutes of action. It's not a few minutes of action, my man. It's rape. You can't go around doing that. So we have guys who are out here, they understand what it is. They're doing things the right way. They're stopping it. They're breaking it up. That's only something that you can applaud. And we don't applaud it nearly enough because we like the negatives in the news. The amount of police officers that do their job correctly, the amount of shootings that don't occur, we never report on those. Just when things go horribly for us. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, and we'll be back with some more talk about North Carolina next.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. You and I know that real men are prepared for anything. You know what I'm talking about because you're a Take Charge guy. Everyone's talking about Grimm's Tactical, featuring first responder gear, survival gear and equipment, Voodoo Tactical, Leapers. For personal protection, Grimm's Tactical features non-lethal personal protection gear, AR/AK parts, knives, canning and dehydrating equipment. If you hike and camp, Grimm's Tactical has got what you're looking for. Bags and packs. And for your side piece, concealed carry holsters. For men and women. Plus, Grimm's Tactical carries a wide variety of freeze-dried food. Wise Mountain House. Backpacker's Pantry. Grimm's Tactical, where law enforcement shops. Safari Lane. Blackhawk. 511. First responder gear at Grimm's Tactical. Grimm's Tactical, 8115 East Brainerd Road, in the shopping center next to the Walmart Marketplace. Look for the Mighty Mini U-Haul office. Grimm's Tactical is right next door. Grimm's Tactical, 8115 East Brainerd Road. Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra-large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet-friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
Any isolated showers and storms will diminish through the nighttime. Muggy overnight. Could see a little patchy late fog. Low 72 to 75. For the weekend, continued very hot and humid, but a few widely scattered afternoon showers and storms will pop up each day with highs into the mid and upper 90s. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Hamilton County Sheriff's Office deputies chased a felon all the way from Highway 153 down to Whitfield County, Georgia. The suspect was spotted driving a stolen car on Bonnie Oaks Drive, and then when the car sped off, police gave chase after attempting to stop him once. The suspect went all the way down to Georgia. The Georgia State Patrol assisted. They managed to pull him over and stop him. His car wrecked in the process. The suspect was arrested, and so was a female passenger. The driver's been charged with possession of a stolen vehicle, felony reckless endangerment, and felony evading. A proposal for a new toll bridge over the Tennessee River connecting Saudi Daisy and Harrison has been canceled. Survey said that people weren't willing to pay a high enough toll for TDOT's liking, and there's not as fast a growth in those areas as TDOT would like either. The decision was announced at a meeting between TDOT and the Tennessee River Bridge Committee. Well, if you're worried about the Tennessee Valley running out of water, don't. Dorothy Rader with the Tennessee American Water says there has never been a time that we've had a lack of water supply in the Tennessee Valley. If it's going on in Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. There's a lot of different ways that this whole sexual assault, domestic violence thing can go, and I'm trying to be subversive today because I did the Baylor story during the whole thing. I was pretty much horrified every single day. There was a whole week there where it was just Baylor talk, and I couldn't help it because Baylor couldn't stop shooting themselves in the foot. Every single day, there was just something new and awful about what it was that Baylor did to the victims of rape on their campus that were victimized by the football team. So it was a relevant story. Every single day was a relevant story about Baylor. Man, and then when Baylor was done, there was that one Joe Pa story just to make my life even more miserable. I just wanted to be done talking about rape and domestic violence. So today, I'm happy I get to talk about somebody who understands, stopped a sexual assault. That would be Christian Garcia, linebacker from the University of Florida. And then I've got another story because I think it's interesting, and it's one of those things where you would jump to conclusions, but you shouldn't. Okay, Ezekiel Elliott has been accused, allegedly, of beating on his ex-girlfriend, Tiffany Thompson. She posted 2 sets of photos of Instagram of her body with the bruises and everything else. And I believe she said in her Instagram, just for every woman out there getting abused, it's time to put a stop to it. She described being thrown across the room by her arms, thrown into walls, and choked to the point that she had to gasp for air. She didn't specifically accuse Ezekiel Elliott of being the person who hit her, but she did tag him in the second post. So there's that. And I will talk about social media for that in a second. But you want to jump to the conclusion and say, hey, this is what's he doing. Ezekiel Elliott just got into the NFL. He just got drafted. He hasn't played a single snap of NFL football, not even preseason football yet. And he's already in the domestic violence machine. He's in the spin cycle. And once you're in that machine, I mean, outside of being proven innocent, there is not a whole lot of ways out of that machine. And she's accused him. Now, Michael Irvin has said that he's spoken with Ezekiel Elliott, and Ezekiel Elliott says that he hasn't done anything. The bruises are from a bar fight that she was in, that he didn't ever hit her, that he ended the relationship, that she threatened to finish him if he ever ended the relationship. So there's a whole lot of conflicting stories there, to the point where we don't know what happened to Ezekiel Elliott, nor do we know what happened to his girlfriend. And they're the only 2 people that know the truth so far. And we haven't found the truth, and we haven't got to the bottom of the truth. But I think that there is a little bit of a temptation to jump to her side here. And I understand, right? When someone is a victim and they're claiming that something has happened to them, you don't want to dismiss what they're saying. I'm not trying to dismiss what she's saying, because it's possible she could be telling the truth. But at the same time, without the proper evidence, without knowing everything that's happened, it would also be reckless to start condemning Ezekiel Elliott without understanding his side of the story. We don't know what he did and didn't do, and her posting vague stuff on Instagram isn't going to help. It's isn't going to explain or clarify exactly what it is that's happening. And here's the deal too with Instagram. Social media is a great invention, but one of the downsides of social media, one of the things about social media that is possibly the most annoying thing, is that social media makes you feel like you know things. Social media has this bad way of making you feel like, A, you know the people on social media when you really don't. And B, it has a bad way of making you feel like you know stuff. Like information gathered on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I mean, there are legitimate news outlets there, but a lot of that's just people's random opinion. That's all it is. People just spouting stuff. just a ton of idiots at a shouting contest. What you end up with is that. And then you hear Ezekiel Elliott's girlfriend post some pictures. She doesn't really accuse him of anything, but she implies that he did stuff. And then all of a sudden, people are outraged at Ezekiel Elliott. And maybe they should be, but let's get to the point where this stuff gets proven first. You can't, he can't be suspended. He can't be or shouldn't be indicted in the court of public opinion before he gets the opportunity to have the truth come out. We haven't had any real evidence come out, just her Instagram photos. Okay, we don't have anything else. And Ezekiel, it's not that you don't want to believe that the guy is a good guy. I mean, I don't root for any of these guys to get in trouble if they are in fact innocent, but you just never know. And the way a person is in interviews, that's not that person. That's just the way they are in interviews. You just don't know who people are. Okay, I mean, I have very, very, very good friends, and I still would hesitate to be like, yeah, that person would never do this, that, and the other thing, because you just don't know who people are, right? Like, you have friends that have shocked you with stuff that they've done that you would just think of that person. They would never do that, and then they've done it. I've had friends that they've been dating, or they've been dating, and they cheated on their girlfriends or whatever. And it's, to me, you would think about that person like, yeah, you would never do that. They're talking about how they love their girlfriend and they love them, and then later on you find out they cheated on her, and I mean, they might have been sorry, but nothing came out until they got caught. And you're thinking to yourself, he would never do that. Yeah, but he did. And you just didn't know him well enough to know that. So I don't know Ezekiel Elliott. I have no idea if he is innocent or not. I don't know if his ex-girlfriend is lying or not. I would not accuse in either direction, but social media has this interesting way of making you choose sides on stuff. People get on Twitter, people get on Facebook, and just have the most inane conversations that ever existed. I mean, you end up with the whole police shootings that happened recently, the police shootings of young black men. That's wrong, right? The retaliation, the shootings of innocent police, that's also wrong. And yet somehow, if you try and sit in the middle and say both of those things are wrong, people don't let you do that. People will not let you do that. Choose a side. Choose the black people. Choose the cops. Why? Why do I have to choose a side? Can I not value the lives of both of those sets of people? It's not mutually exclusive. I don't have to choose one. They're not opposites. I mean, there was a time you could probably argue that they were opposites, but then you can't argue that now. They're not opposites. So why do I have to choose just one? That doesn't make any sense. You get on Twitter and then you see this stuff. She posts the bruising. And I'm willing to bet 100%. I did not read her actual Instagram post, but I'm willing to bet 100% that people in the comments of her post chose sides. This is how things work on Twitter. I don't know if you caught me and Russell doing Two Millennials Talk yesterday, but yesterday we were doing the show and we were talking about Milo Yiannopoulos, who got basically his certification downgraded on Twitter for comments that were supposedly racist that he made about Leslie Jones, one of the stars of the new Ghostbusters movie, that he got him and his followers to say a bunch of racist things to her. And it's funny because nobody can find where he directed people to say racist things to her. And Twitter made you choose a side. Twitter made you choose a side between Milo Yiannopoulos and Leslie Jones, when it's very possible that Milo was a little bit insensitive, but not racist, and that Leslie got bombarded with racist tweets from somewhere, maybe not necessarily him, and overreacted. picked a single person to react against. I mean, why do I have to choose a side? Why do I have to choose Leslie or Milo? Can I not just go, don't pay attention to trolls on Twitter? Is that possible? You can't. Social media doesn't allow you to. They don't like you to, because you have to make blanket statements on the internet. You don't have a whole lot of room to comment. People don't have attention spans that are all that long. I know this. I don't when I'm online. If you write a book, I won't read it. Not on the internet. If I post something and you respond with something greater than a paragraph, I won't read it. So you have to make very short, quick comments. But when you make short, quick comments, you find that they're not very fleshed out. They're not very detailed. And you kind of end up painting with very large, broad brushstrokes. And now we're jumping to sides based on information we don't have. So don't just jump to conclusions based on things you see online. The internet's a great place. It's a powerful tool. But if you don't know how to use it correctly, you will be fooled into saying dumb things, into having dumb conversations. And the whole point of the internet is to have access to stuff that presumably will educate you and enlighten you in some way. And I can't help but think about what it is that Edward R. Murrow once said about TV, because he was a reporter that was trying to report the news, that was trying to bring knowledge to people, and TV has become the thing that he warned against. It's something that pacifies. It's something that makes you waste your time if you're not careful. TV can be a complete waste of time instead of a tool to help bring information to you that you wouldn't have had on your own. I mean, network television is completely worthless. It's completely worthless. And it's worthless. And people are proving that by cutting the cord. They're not subscribing to Comcast or DirecTV as much as they used to. It's worthless. It serves no purpose. And the internet is becoming the same way. People are using the internet not to learn stuff, like not even to learn stuff that just amuses them. Like if you're interested in guns and you look up stuff on guns and you want to learn more about guns, the internet's great for that. I'm a sports fan. I look up stuff about sports all the time, but then people take it to this next level of, let's just have petty arguments with one another about the things that I believe. I'm going to try and convince you from behind my keyboard that your way of thinking and believing is absolutely wrong. And where does that get us besides dividing us more? Seriously, where does that get us? You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Ezekiel Elliott and his girlfriend will bring you more details on that story as it unfolds, but right now we don't know as much as we would like to know. I want to talk about the Olympics, but before I do that, I want to talk very quickly about Ole Miss, because I think there has been a rising sentiment that Ole Miss has kind of been disrespected. They went to SEC Media Days. I think overwhelmingly they were picked to finish third in the SEC West behind Alabama and LSU. And the people feel dissed very easily. They feel disrespected very, very easily over nothing, without any reason to feel disrespected. People feel this way, and it's interesting because it's just like what is actually the cause of your disrespect? You know, a guy that feels fairly disrespected fairly often. I'm sure you've heard of him, Kanye West. If you've ever followed him on Twitter, if you say anything about Kanye West that is vaguely critical, he flips out on Twitter. He tweets in all caps all the time anyway, but he's tweeting at you in all caps about how people don't appreciate his art or whatever it is that he tweets about. And you're just like, man, why do you have to be that sensitive about it? Just random strangers online. People feel disrespected by Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd every year beats the same drum about how Alabama's overrated, about how the SEC is overrated, about how Alabama's got a soft schedule, how SEC teams don't have real schedules. And every single year, people get up in arms about this. Why is he dissing the SEC? Why is he trashing the SEC? Why does it matter? Did you need Colin Cowherd's opinion before you rooted for your team? Why does his opinion mean anything at all to you? I just like to listen to him because I think his opinions are interesting and how he arrives at his opinions are interesting. I don't need him to validate me rooting for my team. If he's saying something you don't like, ignore him. It's okay. How hard is that? You can listen without feeling offended by someone else's opinion. People just feel so disrespected easily for no reason. And then I read this article, and Ole Miss fans feel disrespected. And Ole Miss feels disrespected by people suggesting that they would be third in the SEC West, which the SEC West is a very great conference. I mean, it's a great conference. Finishing third in the SEC West is not a diss in any way. It's not disrespectful. It's just saying that LSU, they're going to be really good this year. You hope to see enough of an improvement from Brandon Harris, and you've got Leonard Fournette. There's no reason why that school shouldn't be good. Defense is always going to be good so long as Les Miles is there. You've got an advantageous game against Alabama in your house. No reason why LSU shouldn't be good. And Alabama's the defending champs. Sure, do they have question marks? Yeah, but we've seen this time in and time out. It's hard to pick and root against Saban until somebody beats him. You got to beat him. And don't give me that Ole Miss has beaten Nick Saban in the last couple of years, but you haven't won the West. This is about people picking you to win the West. You beat them last year, too. They're the champs because you didn't win the West. Do you have the best quarterback in the SEC in Chad Kelly? Yeah, you do. You really do. I'll give you that. But come on. Get off the high horse. Nobody is disrespecting you by picking you to finish third in the loaded SEC West. You just play in a league that's stacked. That's all. Just accept that. Stop being so sensitive about everything. You know, I look at this stuff and I'm just like, I mean, are you seeing what you're typing? And it's not like you've got an easy schedule either. Here's another reason to pick you third. Your schedule's tough. You open the season with Florida State. Week 3 on the 17th of September, you play Alabama, followed by Georgia, followed by Memphis. And Memphis is possibly a school that you should beat, but that's a trap game if ever I saw one. Then you've got a bye October 8th. And then you come back and you play Arkansas, LSU, in LSU. You play Auburn. You play Georgia Southern, and then you play A&M, Vanderbilt, which I think that's another trap game. If you beat A&M and run into Vanderbilt, you play them in Nashville. That defense is freaky good. And we're not sure if you're going to get the same production out of your offensive line or your defensive line. You have to replace Laramie Tunsil and Robert Kimdichie. So what is disrespectful about suggesting that your schedule is tough, you've got holes to fill, and there are two great teams in your loaded conference? What about that suggests disrespect? By saying that you're not better than LSU and Alabama? Yeah, neither is the rest of the SEC. What we're saying is you're better than them. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. Stop feeling so disrespected all the time. Seriously, like get some thicker skin. And get over it. I mean, good grief, man. You talk about stuff that just makes me angry. I spent more time on that take than I wanted to. I wanted to talk about the Olympics because the Olympics are about to start in Rio. Okay. In 2 weeks, the Olympics will begin. And a lot of people are going to go to the Olympics, but just outside of the Olympic Village in the slums of Brazil, the favelas, as they're called. It's violent. And there are a lot of gangs, a lot of gang violence. Gang violence as a result of drug trafficking that, quite frankly, isn't new. It's been a problem in Brazil for years. And I'll post a link on the Facebook page to some of these pictures of just outside the Olympic Village of Brazil. Some of these these gangs are out here. They're shooting at one another. They've got a lot of guns. And quite frankly, in America, gang violence isn't nearly as scary because you know where most gangs operate. And if you don't live there and you don't go there, there's no reason to be afraid of gang violence typically, right? It's usually pretty well sectioned off in most cities. And then on top of that, you have the police trying to keep that in check. And I think we can more, like, despite all the recent things that we've had with police, I think that we can say that most of our police are fairly reliable in a way that you cannot say if you live in Brazil. The police are easily bribed, easily paid off, and can be, in many cases, non-existent. And look, violence happens everywhere. I'm not suggesting that this is a Brazilian problem alone, or this is a Rio problem alone. Just that in this particular situation, you have so many people coming from outside of Brazil. You don't know where to go. You don't know where not to go. You have no idea. And you're supposed to just figure it out. That the police are supposed to be protecting the athletes at the stadiums, right? Because we're all afraid of terrorism. We're all afraid of attacks. And inside the Olympic area is supposed to have police. Also outside the Olympic area is supposed to have police, because there's gang violence there that when people leave and go home after the Olympics, there's going to still be the gang violence. That's not going anywhere. So it's got to be accounted for. It's not going to go away just because the Olympics are happening and people are holding hands. There's nobody getting together for a good, nice hour-long session of kumbaya. It's not happening. Okay? Not in Brazil, not this quickly. And this is on top of the other problems that Brazil has, like the doping and the water that might not be sanitary for people to swim in, for athletes to swim in that are participating in those outdoor water events, can make you quite sick. So why are we doing the Olympics in Rio? I mean, I think that that's the question that I have. I suppose now that we're 2 weeks away, you can't stop it. But I've been asking why we haven't stopped it since March. Since March. This has been a problem since March. Just saying. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. And quite frankly, remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you in about 72 hours. Free Talk Live is next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sugar Tuesday is an exciting prospect at Shooters Supply and Range in Hickson. Hold your breath and squeeze. Shooters waives the membership fee if you want to shoot any Tuesday. You pay only a $10 range fee, half the price of other gun shops in the area. And another exciting bullseye, on Tuesdays only, enter a drawing. It's for a free $50 gift certificate. Spend the gift card on ammo toward a nifty $380 for your sweetheart, or the concealed carry class maybe, or the use of our electronic firing range. Trigger Tuesday, Shooter Supply and Range in the A-Frame right in your Northgate Mall. 875-4868. Shop us at shooters-range.com. Repairs, transfers,